Hello, everybody. My name's Steve Sallis, and I'm the founder and CEO of solutionsmindset.com. What is mindset and how does it help you grow and be successful in life? And I'm delighted to work with New Era Global Sports and speak on the webinar and really be the host with many successful athletes and share from their lens and how they see the world what it felt like to be playing at the top end and managing at the top end of the British game. I'm obsessed with character. I think character over caliber. Caliber someone's skills and character someone's determination, resilience, thought patterns, work ethic is the real theme that comes out to all of you.
Look, I think when you've been involved in football for 35 years, you see a lot of talented people and a lot of showed characteristics in many different ways. And the one example probably is a good one, to be fair, because not everybody's going to go through all the high points all the time. He's a lad called Jordan Hugo. He was at we signed him at from Port Vale. Right. You talk about luck. We got a call from somebody who'd seen him play for Port Vale Reserves and said, look, he might be worth a little punt here. So without that call to start with, we might not have ever signed him. Then you go do a little bit of research into him. He'd basically been apprenticed somewhere, fell out, didn't make it in the game, went and was a barman in a couple of pubs in Middlesbrough. Decided he wanted to get back on the trail of being a footballer again. Went to Glen Hoddle's school in Spain, I think, of that sort of procedure. And then he ended up going to Port Vale, and you're thinking, this kid is going to try and grasp an opportunity. And from the very first day that he came into the training ground, he wanted to do everything the best that he can. I remember him now, right? His first day of pre-season, we're doing 2,000 metre runs or something like that. And I still remind him of today. I said, have you still got that caravan on your back? Because he was miles behind all the other lads and all the other lads doing this, doing that. And he carried on working, he carried on training. And it wasn't until probably the following year that he went away again. I think they probably got promoted, actually. And he must have thought, he went on loan actually to Hartlepool because he'd not been playing too much, scored a lot of goals, kept them all up. And then he came back pre-season like an absolute demon. He was fitter than anybody, was stronger than anybody. And by doing that, he's earned his £9 million move to West Ham. And I love that sort of story of a lad who sort of, not the most talented of players, but he would do anything to have a living in the game. And if he was earning £3,000 a week, £2,000 a week, £1,000 a week, he'd be happy in it. He's on fortune, obviously, in the Premier League now, but he deserves that because of the heart and soul and the characteristics that he's had to show throughout his whole life, not just as a footballer.
I think two people probably come to mind. I'm not saying these are the best ever players that I've played with, although they're two good ones. But in terms of character, and for two different reasons, I'll go Gylfi Sigurdsson. I played with him for a long time, twice at Swansea and once at Everton, and I just think that he never misses a day's training. Every day's, top of the work rate charts, does everything that's asked of him, doesn't really complain. In the games, he doesn't really miss a game in terms of he won't take one off. He's always high up on the running stats, and his life revolves around his career as it should. I think he analyses the opposition goalkeepers and trends, and he takes it very seriously. And the other one that comes to mind would be Craig Bellamy, although I didn't play with him at club level, but at international level, he was just an absolute animal. As soon as he was very intense with everything he did anyway. He always expected the best. He gave his best. We could be doing a passing drill that 99% of the players are just going through the motions, talking about what they did last night as a lead into the session. And he's like 100%, and he's raising the standards of everyone else's passing drill. And whatever he was doing, he did it to the best he could do it, and he'd expect you to do it. If he felt like you weren't matching his effort level.
Yeah, the one person that springs to mind is Kamar Ruth. He came to us on loan to Oxford from West Brom, and he hadn't played a first team game, and he did okay for us on loan, and he scored 4 in the last 3 games of that season, and he still had a year left at West Brom, but he made the decision to come to Oxford because we wanted to keep him, and he could have stayed at West Brom and probably played around the 21s, maybe got a different loan move, or maybe have got a chance in the first team, who knows. but he took that decision upon himself to come to Oxford. We were in League Two at the time. I think West Brom were in the Premier League. And he was humble enough to know that he had to go out and play games at that point in his career. And nothing was going to stop him from achieving what he has gone on to achieve, because every day, much like the characteristics we've described, over the course of this webinar, he was in early every morning. He was one of the last ones to leave. He was constantly practicing his finishing and his strength. He was always in the gym, and it was almost like nothing was going to stop him from getting him where he wanted to be. I think he ended up scoring 26, 27 goals that season when we went up, and ultimately he moved to Leeds. I think it was for 3 or 4 million. And he deserved that, because he worked so hard and he made that decision to go out and play. And now he's obviously playing out in Belgium. So in terms of character, he's one of the strongest people that I've played with in terms of his mindset, and that nothing was going to stop him.
Now, my biggest influence was Joey Jones, the old fullback for Liverpool. I'm young in here to have watched him, but a lot of people will know him. And he was my youth team coach and 21s coach at Wrexham, and he'd given away all of his 70 Wales caps. He'd given away all his Champions League medals for Liverpool to charity. He was the first in every day. I don't know how many heart attacks he had in the time that we was actually there. He'd be in hospital. He'd be back in the next week. And yeah, his humility, everything about him. I absolutely him and Mickey Thomas would be in the training ground together, messing about. But his attitude to football, he's first in every morning. He'd stay behind when the centre of excellence came in. I used to look at him and think, you've won Champions Leagues, played how many games for Wales, played at the top level, Chelsea, all the stories he had to tell. But his humility and attitude to football is what lasts longest for me, I think.
I've got two. One of them's the exact same as Ash in Craig Bellamy.
Wow.
I played with him at West Ham. Although he didn't play as much because he was injured quite a lot. But when he was out on the pitch, like Ash said, if you didn't do like a simple passing drill, you didn't do it at match pace, he let you know that you weren't doing it right, and you need to sort yourself out. He was, a lot of people speak of him like he was a bully and stuff like that. He was a perfectionist. Everything had to be perfect with him, with Bellas. Your work ethic had to be at 100%. Your technique had to be 100%. Even if you know that your technique ain't always going to be there, but as long as you see you keep trying and trying and trying, he'd be happy with you. And the other one for me, Bobby Zamora.
Wow, Brighton legend.
Yeah, the Bobby Zamora that you saw halfway through his West Ham career, then moving on to Fulham and then on to QPR, wasn't the Bobby that when he first come to West Ham. Bobby wasn't strong. His hold-up play wasn't the best. And he knew that. And by getting stick off the West Ham fans, which he did get a lot of when he first come, he set a program up with our sports scientist at the time, Alex Dyer, at West Ham, where he dedicated himself to the gym, he dedicated himself to eating right, and he became an absolute beast of a specimen of a guy. And he became the Bobby Zamora that everyone knows and loves now. He's strong, his hold-up play is fantastic, and he can finish with both feet. And that comes from his resilience and his mindset to want to get better because he was getting stick.
In terms of regrets as a player or as a manager, is there anything, and this is obviously labelled to everyone out there who's on the panel today, in your career, player or manager, that you actually regret, and any advice that you can give to anyone?
I wouldn't say that I've got any regrets in terms of every decision that I've made, whether it is moving clubs as a player, moving clubs as a manager. I've always felt that it was the right thing to do at that particular time. Not every decision you're going to make is going to work out. In terms of leaving a great squad and a great football club at Preston for a challenge at Sunderland was a challenge enough for me, thinking that I can go and believed in my personality and my what I could do to turn around that club, because I trusted what I was able to do. And as a player, I've left a couple of clubs. I went from Leicester when we'd just finished 9th in the Premier League and won the League Cup to go to Aston Villa. who were fourth in the Premier League at the time. And these were always up. I saw them as step ups in my career. Didn't always work out as you'd expect them to or like them to, but I certainly don't have any regrets in any of the decisions that I've made. And even more recently, going back to Blackpool in the summer was another decision that I thought long and hard about. And losing your job, 7 months in, doesn't sort of, I'm not happy about it, but I don't have any regrets going, because I genuinely thought at the time it was the right thing to do. I think in terms of a manager, I would probably have done a little bit more due diligence on what I needed to do. I think it was too easy to say yes to Sunderland, because they were an ex-Premier League club. I've been at Preston for 4.5 years, and I just felt that there was a big opportunity to go to a massive football club to try and go back and try and work in the Premier League with them. If I'd really looked into a lot more details of the club and the problems that they had, maybe I wouldn't have gone. But sometimes you're not privy to that information as well, that you sometimes think, well, it doesn't look too bad on the outside until you get in amongst it on the inside and see the real nitty-gritty of it. And that's the hardest problem, that sort of when you're trying to change jobs, that you're not obviously privy to too much information that you maybe need as a player or as a manager going into them clubs. Because I certainly did enough due diligence, I thought, myself, in terms of speaking to people, Moisey and people like that who'd already been at the club. Even when I'd moved clubs, I always spoke to other people about what it's going to be like under a new manager and stuff like that. So I've always been quite at a process and a thoughts of doing my due diligence of where I'm going to move to, and then it's up to me then to decide if it's the right thing to do. And along the way of my career as well, I've ultimately as well had a lot of decisions that I've turned down. I had the opportunity to go manage in the Premier League when I was in the Championship with Leeds, and I turned it down because I didn't think they're the right things for me at that particular time. So there's been plenty of opportunities playing and managing, like the other lads will have had, where we've turned down opportunities because we don't think it's the right thing. So I think when you try and talk about having regrets, these are decisions I've made and thought long and hard about, so I can't have any regrets with them.
Ashley, over to you.
People probably look at my move from Swansea, where, you know, everything was nice for me. I'd been there for 9 years, captain of the club and doing well, and I moved to Everton, and people will probably look and say that move didn't work out. But for me, I think that, you know, I needed that challenge. We got back into Europe. We had a good first season, my first season, which people I think forget a little bit. I enjoyed the season. I think the second season it fell apart a little bit for everyone there, but it's not something that I regret. You know, I moved house. You know, the family are happy. We're in a nice city now, and it was all a bit of a learning curve going to that club, from, you know, stepping out of my comfort zone, which I think is important for my own personal development, not just on the pitch but off the pitch. And you know, like Simon said, really all the things that you look back now and you think, well, that didn't go so well or as well as I wanted, or, you know, I made a bit of a mistake there. If you put yourself back in that position at that place and at that time, it seemed like the right thing to do. That's obviously why you did it. So I don't really get hung up on the things like that. I just try and see some positives in it, which there will be some positives in it, and try not to make the same, you know, mistake or decision again with that little bit of experience that you've got.
All right, so Danny, from your point of view, where are you at in terms of this question? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can probably only echo what you guys have said so far. No real huge regrets in terms of the decisions that I've made over the course of my career. If I could pin sort of one moment, it'll be quite early on in my career when I was coming through at Man United in the youth team and the reserves. It was around about the January window, and I was reserve team captain at the time. So playing regularly reserve team football. I was training in and around the first team a couple of times a week when they needed some younger players. And I come in, I think it was the day after Boxing Day game, and Alex Ferguson pulled me into his office, and he's like, Danny, I want you to go on loan to Oxford. And I was like, right, okay, Oxford, what league's Oxford in? And I had a look after, and they were in the conference at the time. So I'm like, it's probably not the best move, maybe, in terms of what division they were in at the time. I expected maybe if I was to go on loan, maybe to go higher. But I found out after that it was sort of a favour to the late Jim Smith, who was the manager of Oxford at the time. Jim Smith had rang Alex Ferguson. They obviously had a good relationship, and it was more of a favour to do that, really. So if I had one decision which I maybe look back and think that I made differently, it would be maybe just to have stayed a bit longer at Man United at that time. But at the time, you know, I was young. I was 18. I remember going to train later that morning and speaking to one or two of the first team players and being like, "What do you think? Do you think I should stay or should I just go out on loan?" And their advice was go out on loan and go and play and go and get some games. So, and that's the advice that I would give any young player now that's at a top club. It's okay being at the top clubs and, you know, earning decent money, but unless you do get out there and make a bit of a name for yourself, then when it comes to you do leave that top club at maybe 21, 22, 23, you know, hardly played any games. I ended up going to Oxford on loan and then signing there after the end of that season. And I think I knew at that point when I was 18, 19 that I wasn't going to play at that top level. So I knew ultimately it was the right decision to make in terms of going out and playing games.
All right, so we're interesting journey. Neil, from your journey, talk to us about, again, on the theme of where you're at in terms of, is there a what-if brigade? Do you think that you would have made any changes to your career?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, I had the standard regret, or, you know, I got knocked back when I was 15 by Man City, basically told, you're not going to make it, you're too small, we're strong in that area. It was about a year before they got bought by the rich owners, and I think that I got the knockback at that age and sort of fell out of love with football a little bit and decided to go more local. I've been travelling 2 hours 3 times a week for almost 8 years as a kid up to Manchester to play for them. So I decided to go to Wrexham, which at the time was a League One club. They got relegated the year I joined at 15. Administration hit them when I was in the youth team. And almost through that happening is where I got my chance to start playing first team football at 17. So there's always an element of luck. I guess everyone's story on here is an element of luck somewhere along the way where they get their chance. But I think doing it the way I've done it through non-league, Ash did the same thing, quite a few boys have done it. It meant that I played football early on, and I try and tell all the Villa lads now, I think if you're in and around the 21 squad now and you're of the age of 20 and 21, then it's not where you're supposed to be. And I think, so from my point of view, playing games at that age, at that level, realising what football is really about, means that I've gone through the game, you know, very grateful for what I've got. But also at the same time, you know, I've got no regrets. A lot of things have happened along the way that I might have slightly done differently. I'd like to have spoken to managers more when I was a younger player. And, you know, now I'm in the last sort of 3-4 years, I'm able to walk to a manager's office and talk to them, and I'm happy to engage with them. Whereas before that, I probably would have thought in my head, what's his thinking? Why is he playing this player? Why am I playing? What's happening? And actually, if you go and have that conversation with them, you get a pretty honest answer and you come out with a clear head. Whereas as a young lad, you know, I maybe didn't do that. And that would be my advice to people is go and speak to a manager. Don't let your agent do it or anything like that.
Last but not least, Mr. Ferdinand, tell us your story.
Would I regret the way I handled the Steve Bruce situation? For those who don't know about the Steve Bruce situation, I had a massive argument with him in the lead up to one of the seasons at Sunderland. And we had an argument in the dressing room, not in the gym, where he come in and was like, he tried to embarrass me in front of a few players and say, who do you think you are? Like, who's your agent? Who's going to want you? Because your mentality is rubbish. And I was like, pardon? Like, you taking the mick? And we got into like a massive argument. Do I regret speaking to him the way that I spoke to him? Yeah, I do. I regret that. But at the time, I was just in the situation. It happened, and like, it just came out. You know, it was something that it felt like it was uncontrollable at the time because I felt hurt. I felt embarrassed. And my initial thought was that as a manager, really, if he would have brought me to his office or took me to the side privately and spoke to me, and he could have called me every name under the sun, I wouldn't have said a word to him. I would have taken it on the chin. But the fact that he done it in front of players, it's different. You know, when, as you guys will know, when you're in a dressing room and your manager's like effing and jeffing at you, or he's like obliterating you, in the dressing room you take it all day long, part and parcel. But this was like a relaxed environment. We was in the gym, ticking over, getting ready to go out for training. And he just come at me and it was like, wow, like, are you taking a mick? Like, you treat me like I'm a little kid. I was in my mid-20s at the time. I was thinking, you treat me like I'm a little kid. And it just came out of me. But there's lessons from it for other players, for younger players. Sometimes you just got to bite your tongue and you have to be the bigger person, and you then go into the manager's office afterwards and have a conversation with him about it.
So I want you to think about two concepts, talent and resilience, like grit, right? And then they're two different concepts. You've got talent here and then you've got resilience here. Now I want you to think about your youth career and all of the players, or even your first team career, that have just disappeared off the face of the earth. You lot have all had established careers at your levels. Simon, you've had an established career also in management. And linking, Simon, to you as well, we'll start with you in terms of a talented manager or a resilient manager. What do you think gets you further?
Look, I think we've all known players that have had talent but not have had the resilience to go, or the right characteristics to go and really fulfil that talent. You know what I mean? So if you've got the resilience, which I think plays a massive, massive part in a footballer, because not everything is going to go your way. You have to suffer disappointment so many times. You can be 1 week up, man of the match, next week you score an own goal or miss a chance and you get criticised, and that's when that resilience has to come through. So if you can, I don't think you can say one is more important than the other, Steve. I think what you've got to try and do is mirror the two together.
All right.
Have the talent, but I do think if you were to really outweigh either of them, I think the resilience, because you are going to get knockbacks all the time. It's how you come back from it all the time. You know what I mean? I've been sacked 4 times, and it's like, what am I going to do? I'm a talented manager, I know that. But if I haven't got the resilience to really want to go and prove people wrong again, then I won't get another job. You know what I mean? And I won't be successful again. I could have, and the first time I got sacked was at Leeds, and it hurt. And you're going back to earlier on, was a little bit bitter. I was. Every time I've been sacked, I've been bitter for a few games. Even Leeds, when I left there, that's the team I support, and I wanted them to lose the next few games. But the resilience from me was that I'm going to go to the next job and be successful. And fortunately that happened. I went to Huddersfield and got them promoted, got sacked at Huddersfield, then went to Preston. And again, there's a resilience and a determination to say, right, I know I'm talented, but my resilience is going to come through to show people that I'm going to be able to get my talent to flourish right the way through. Right. And off the back of that, obviously got promoted with Preston as well.
Can you learn to be resilient? From your point of view and your journey as a child into pro football, into management, can you learn it?
I think you can do, yeah. I think you can. I think a lot of it has got to come from within and the type of character that you are. I think also learning from experience and talking to people about the experiences, how you, especially when you're younger, how can you deal with this situation? When I was at Leeds, I made my debut at 17 and never played for another 2-3 years again. And you start questioning yourself there, but you speak to the older pros who will then still guide you, give the experience to you. And ultimately then, as you go through these difficult times and these parts of your careers, it just becomes a little bit ingrained into you. And the more you get, the more disappointment you've learned from your previous opportunity, disappointment. And then you go and take that on and on. So as much as the older players that we're all here today, we will have got so much more resilient. I'm far more resilient now because I'm more experienced and older and wiser. But if we can pass on the message to younger players that when you suffer a disappointment, try to be resilient. Make sure that you're going to prove somebody wrong. Make sure you're going to maybe have a conversation with somebody that can guide you along the way, and they will give you examples of what they've gone through.
Thank you. Spot on. Really, really good insight as well from there. Ashley, your thoughts on this topic?
I think it's a good question that you asked, and I think that for me, resilience interests me a lot because I think, for me personally, that I'm still not talented. I've never been talented. There's not anything on the football pitch that's a natural talent for me that I do at all. But I think that for me, in my opinion, the resilience is way more important than the talent. And I say that because I think I've seen so many talented players that don't play anymore. Talented players that don't play anymore for a lack of resilience or a lack of grit or determination or discipline or whatever you want to call it. And I think that that's the only reason that I'm sitting here today with X amount of appearances and international caps and whatever. And I just think that, there's certain ways that you could, to answer the question that you asked, Simon, was I think that there's a few ways you can probably try and improve your resilience. Maybe, work on your discipline, work on your routines, work on, trying to control the things that you can control. And then off the back of that, you will be more resilient in times that are a little bit difficult. And that goes in game as well. In every single game we've probably all played, we've suffered a little bit in the game from the other team, being under pressure and the resilience that you have to show there. And especially for myself, being a captain of most of the teams, a lot of people are looking at you in the game or in the week when, you might have lost 2 or 3 games on the bounce, and everyone's starting to look at you now inside to see what you're going to do and how you respond. And that's where you have to be resilient to setbacks. And for me, I think that what was inside me, I'm not sure where that's come from. But I take a lot of pride in the fact that I feel like I'm a resilient character, on and off the pitch.
I was at Man United when I was younger, and within a year of being released from there, I found myself at Newport County in the Conference South. So it was a huge culture shock. It was a lot of pressure in terms of, similar to Tails, where I guess there was that expectancy from, you were that kid who was playing at a top team, was always probably going to make it. And all of a sudden I'm playing part-time football on 400 quid a week. And along with that comes the pressure of, you're living back home. Your friends are like, oh, like that Danny's back home. It didn't work out for him. Like that's a shame. And you got to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. And also the pressure of, like, I'm that player that's come from Man United. There's a lot of expectancy from the people at Newport County expecting this player who's played at Man United to have a bit of wow factor. So there was that to deal with. And I remember Dean Holdsworth was the manager at the time, and I thank him a lot, and I'm still in touch with him quite regularly, because he did something which I think is quite impressive at a non-league club, which he really created a professional environment. So I never really felt that I was playing in non-league or playing part-time, even though we still trained twice a week. But I quickly realised something early on in my career after getting released from Man United, is that I was never going to be the fastest player. I was never going to be the strongest physical player. So I knew I had to gain an edge on my teammates, and obviously the people that I was going to be coming up against week in, week out, especially in the Conference South, because managers in that league, 90% of the managers are looking for one thing, and that's players that are 6 foot plus, and that's not me. I'm 5'7". So I knew I had to be super fit and super sharp to have an edge on these players, which I worked on, because I had a lot of time on my hands. I wasn't playing full-time football. It was part-time, 2 nights a week. And it was through that sort of resilience and knowing what I had to do to get to where I wanted to be. I knew I had the technical ability to be playing to play in the Football League. I just now had to match the two together to get there.
I think you have to have the talent to get there 100%. But if you're not resilient enough, then you're gonna fall from grace, and it's not going to be a nice fall. The top players have resilience. The players who stay at the top, they have resilience. That's one thing that they've all got in common. They're all technically different. They're all different type of players, but one thing they do have is resilience. I'm the same as Neil in terms of where my resilience comes from. Was definitely from my upbringing, being from Peckham, being on a council estate, watching my parents not have very much. But then as I got older, that set me in good stead. But then my resilience changed from that and transitioned into a bit of fear.
Cool.
Where I feared letting down my family. I feared letting down, when I became a footballer, the fear of letting down the Ferdinand name helped me be resilient. If I did feel like I was doing that, then I went back to basics. And I think that was the resilience in me. I was used to hearing people say, oh, Anton's not as good as Rio. So I had to be resilient from a really, really young age.
How important, let's pretend an analogy, you're all the team, right? you're the team, and then behind you, the team behind the team, your family, your staff members. How important are they, and would you be able to do the job without them?
When you're a manager and you've got teammates in the dressing room, you surround yourself with good people. You don't go around looking for praise and all the time from somebody to say how well you're doing or anything like that. It's more sort of, it might be a general conversation you're having with the staff, and somebody might just say something that they don't realise they've said it, but all of a sudden it's about you and what we've been doing, and all of a sudden that gives you a big sort of lift in terms of how you're feeling and the people around you. Without, as I said, without everybody writing on social media or other things, it's sometimes a clip from a player, a fellow manager that you may be having a conversation with. They might pick up the phone and you're talking about something, and all of a sudden they'd say, well, how did you do this when you got promoted? And maybe this is a manager that is managing in the leagues above, that all of a sudden that's giving you a big sort of lift. So good people around you is vital in all this, because as you find in the football industry, there's a lot of people that are just in it to be friends, associated with footballers, managers, for all the fantastic trappings that come with it. It's really the ones that stick through with the players and managers, that when the tough times are there, you know what I mean? Sort of, as a manager, you lose your job and all of a sudden your phone doesn't ring as often. Well, it's the real key people that have been close to you and guided you and helped you along the way, that are there for you when we're all in our times of needs. Because of all of us will not go through our careers, or have gone through our careers so far, without having to really sort of dig deep and ask advice or speak to people. And I think that's a key thing, that don't be frightened to speak to people, no matter how old you are, the guidance of what you're getting from people, because it will be one little snippet might just all of a sudden go, yeah, that sinks with, that hits home, that does.
Interesting. Okay. Ashley Williams, what are your thoughts?
Just to follow on from what Simon said there, I think it's equally as important to recognise your relationships, whether that's your girlfriend, your teammates, your friends outside of football, who is not in it for the right reasons, and who's not giving you good advice, and who actually wants the best for you, and separate yourself a little bit from them, and just keep the people around you for as long as possible that actually have your back and that are giving you unselfish advice and trying to help you get to where you're going to get, as you would them. Because I think that, having the wrong voices around you at times, and I've seen it lots of times, can have a detrimental effect on where you're trying to go. Because a lot of the time, especially for the young kids, what you're trying to achieve and what the majority of your friendship circle or people around you are trying to achieve is completely different. So I think it's important to have for me anyway, a solid little team around you that are helping you get where you need to get, and that are going to give you straight up advice. Be happy when you succeed, be upset with you when you fail, and tell you the truth in whatever it is that they're feeling at the time.
Right, I want to know whether two quick questions. Was luck involved, Simon, in your journey? Were you lucky? And the second one is the best character you've ever coached or worked with in management?
In terms of luck, I think there's the old saying, isn't there, that you make your own luck, but it certainly does play a part, without a shadow of a doubt. I was a reserve team manager at Blackpool, playing in the first team at the same time as well. Got an opportunity to go to be an assistant manager with somebody else. Went to Colin Hendry, who was a manager at the time. Told him I wanted to pack in play and wanted to be a coach. He said, go and speak to Carl Oyston, the owner, about it. Went to see him, asked him the same question, and he said, no, you can't go. I'm not letting you go. I said, why? He said, I'm sacking Colin Hendry and you're taking over as caretaker manager. And so you talk about luck. I could have gone to another club, and that club has gone out of business now. I'm not saying it would have done, this was 15 years ago now, but that little bit of luck where it forced I wouldn't say it forced the owner to sack Colin, because I think he was doing it anyway, but I was at the right place at the right time, worked hard to get on my badges, worked hard to learn my trade, but then fell into it at the right time. And you do need that luck, without a shadow of a doubt, because it can't go, you can't just rely on resilience, talent and all the other things as well, a little bit luck does play a part. And you make your own luck at the same time as well. The harder you work and the more determined you are, you'll come through, you'll get more luck without a shadow of a doubt. If somebody tosses it off, then I don't think they'll get the breaks that they deserve. So yeah, I've had that luck, and as a player at it as well. So I got told that I wouldn't play in the team once. Again, 2-3 games into the season, the lad who was in my position got injured, did his cruise ship. I came into the team, got Player of the Year, got promoted at Wembley, and then went to play in the Premier League for the next 4 or 5 years, getting a move to Aston Villa on the back of that. So sometimes the right place at the right time does work for you without a shadow of a doubt.
Dan, your thoughts on luck, mate?
Yeah, I think there's always an element, a degree of luck that you get and breaks that you get throughout your career. I think when you're growing up, when we've all got scouted at some stage of our career, it's always you play well when the right person's watching, and I think that happens in your sort of first team career as well. Getting the break where Chris Wilder signed me again at Northampton, I look back and think that that I caught a bit of a break there, because I was at a bit of a wit's end coming towards sort of the end of that season or around the January window, looking at where am I going to go if I don't go and play anywhere or I don't get in the team at Oxford. And I look back and I think I caught a bit of a break there, and my resilience and character sort of saw me through that. But then at the same time, I know that during the initial time that I had with Chris Wilder at Oxford, I was playing every week in, week out for him. So I knew that he had that belief in me. So it's sort of a bit of both. I think that the opportunity was there, which sort of came out of nowhere, but I had sort of earned that opportunity because I worked for him before and he believed and trusted in me as well.
Neil, your thoughts?
There's always an element of luck, but any footballer that makes it's just taking it. It's taking that chance. Everybody gets handed chances. I got one at Wrexham. I got one at Swansea. I think 2 games into my first season, Alan Tay got injured. I got to play and ended up playing 35 games that season. Everybody has an element of luck along the line. It's about taking it. I look at young lads now that go on loan from our team and they come back, and you sort of know if they took their chance or not. You look at how they've done, and do you know what? He probably didn't take his chance. He's dropped down a league. Maybe didn't take the chance. Will he get another one? Because football's that unforgiving. And then you see other ones. I pick up Callum O'Hare now. He's at Coventry in League One, doing really well. You look at him and think he's took his chance, and you knew he would from how he trained. So how he was daily training with us, he went out and played on loan, which is no man's land for a lot of players. Anything can happen. And he took his chance because of how he applies himself every day. So I think, you get the luck, but you have to take the chance and then to just line up.
And then, because what's really interesting about taking this chance, what I think the listeners need to understand is, you lot, when you get that chance, you're not just playing well one game either, you're playing a series of games. You said you played 30 games for Wrexham, Neil. So I'd imagine 20 to 25 of those you were 7 out of 10 minimum. But the young athletes don't think that, do they? You think you got to play well once. You lot did it for years. And I think that's, as an outsider looking in, you lot are probably the best people in the game at being 7, 8 out of 10 every week. Not necessarily 9s and 10s.
I don't know whether everyone's the same. Anton mentioned it. It's a fear of failure. That's what it is. For me, anyway. It's a fear of failure. It's a fear of letting people down. My current family now, before would have been my parents. It's a fear of failure. That's what's always driven me. Anton mentioned it, and I'm sure a lot of people have got the same outlook.
Ashley?
You almost have to be mentally and physically strong at all times, because you never know what's around the corner. You don't know if there's a tornado coming at some point in your life. So you don't know what opportunity will come up. You don't know what's going to kick you in the teeth. But when it does, you got to be ready for whatever that is. And I think that's from a young age. It's just every single training session. You don't know if in that one training session where you're a little bit tired, you didn't sleep last night and you can't be asked, whether that coach that's watching in a year's time, he's at another team and he thought, you know what, we need a right back. I remember that kid, he's a right back. He played well in that one session, or those 2 months where he came up from the 23s and he did well. So you never know. I just think every day you got to do, I know it sounds cheesy, but your best, or try and improve whatever it is.
How many players use the excuse that they didn't have any luck? Sometimes it's an easy excuse for players to blame somebody else and use the phrase, "Oh, I didn't get any breaks, I wasn't lucky enough." Well, that's too an easy excuse, isn't it?
What are your thoughts on on the luck element, and where do you think it lies in the current game from your point of view?
I agree with Ashley. I think like you breed your own luck with the way the way that you are day in, day out. You breed your luck by the way you are, your work ethic and stuff. I can only speak from my own experiences. Before I made my debut, the year before I made my debut for West Ham, I just left school. I was 17, and Glenn Roeder was the manager. And he gave me a bit of advice that stuck with me throughout my whole career. Was your first impressions are your most important impression on a person, whether it be a coach or your teammate. And he said to me, my first time I ever trained with the first team, he said to me, Anton, do you know why you're here? And I said, why? He went, because the first thing I ever saw from you was composure, and I liked it. And I said, okay, well, what type of composure did I show? What was it? What? Give me the scenario. And he said, well, a ball went up in the air from a defensive corner, and he said, you went up for a header, but you shouted keepers, and you let it hit the back of your head and roll back to the keeper. He said, that was my first impression of you, and that stuck in my head. So I knew when there was an opportunity to bring someone over from the youth team or reserves, I was going to pick you because of your first impression.
Take something out of this without a shadow of doubt, because at the end of your career, you don't want to look back and think, I wish I'd done this, and have any regrets whatsoever. We've all talked about being better people and learning from experiences the older we get. Well, there's enough insight from all the players now, and myself, that why wait till you're 28, 29 that you feel that you have to go and speak to the manager? Go and speak to him at 22. He'll respect you if he's got anything about you, or if you need to do extra training, or you need to do this, or do whatever you need to do to fulfill your ambition of being a footballer and as a good person in general as well. So draw from the experience of everything that everybody said today, and don't let things pass you by without a shadow of doubt.